All right. It is February 1st. I'm actually proud of myself as long as I get this out today. I ended the month. I actually finished my last January book yesterday, and I ended the month with 18 books. I'm not going to be super detailed because this video will be super long, but I'm going to go through all of them and give my little 2 cents, if you will. These are not going to be in any particular order. They're literally going to be just in order I remember them, to be honest. All right, so I started January with, you guys already know, I was super excited about this. If you follow me on my TikTok or Instagram, I started the month reading Hunger Games. I did go ahead and complete the original 3, so that was Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. And you guys, I love them. I was already a fan of all the movies, loved them. And when I say all the movies, I mean these 3 movies. I have yet to go through the prequels. I know I would get there, I promise, but I wanted to make the priority the original 3. I have to say there were some pretty slight differences and then some pretty significant differences from the books to the movie. So first off, starting in Hunger Games, I don't know if it was just me, detail that passed through my mind, or as I was watching the movie it just went over my head. But the detail in which they do the drawing of names, I did not realize that when they draw the names, they're able to put their name in the bowl multiple times depending on how many times they put it in there to go ahead and provide food for their family. I didn't realize that. If it was in the movies, again, it just went whoop, right over my head. So I do want to rewatch the movies after reading these. So Katniss's name was in there, I think 20 something times, and even Gail's name was in there 40 something times, just from over the years. One, I was like, hold up now, that's different, because now I understand why Katniss was so surprised why Prim's name was called in this book, because hello, Prim's name was only entered one time, and for it to be entered one time and that's the name that they pull, what is the coincidence of that? The odds of that happening was crazy. And I guess may the odds ever be in your favor makes total sense. You know what I'm saying? So that was one big difference in here that I found. I also found that the Peeta from the books versus Peeta in the movie are, I feel like that they're very different in the sense of Peeta in the movie, he was portrayed to be, I feel like they made him to be a jerk almost, and in the books he wasn't. So Peeta in the books was very like confident and flirty and just totally different than the Peeta that we've seen in the movies. Again, this is my opinion. If you agree with me, please let me know. So that was Hunger Games. Before I forget, did I cry? I did cry in this book. I knew what was coming with Rue. I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to be sad. I cried when I watched the movie. I cry like a baby during the scene with Rue. I don't know if it was because I also did the audio with this, so I immersive read it. I don't know if hearing the narrator singing that lullaby to Rue just did something to my brain, but I was sobbing. Here, I don't remember too many differences from in Catching Fire that at least are memorable to me right now trying to do this. Again, I read this in the beginning of January, so I don't really remember. In here, I realized in here that Coin was always from the get, Coin was the villain. I knew, I was like, she was sussed in the movies, but in the book, hello? I knew right away that she was just going to be another Snow. She was just going to be just someone else that's going to do the same thing, just justifying it. You know what I'm saying? So I knew it right away that what was going to happen. What I didn't love in all 3, I feel that wasn't really portrayed in the movies, was the love triangle. In the movies, I feel like there really wasn't a said love triangle between Katniss, Gale, and Peeta. I really feel like in the movie, she loved Gale, but it wasn't how she loved Peeta. And in the books, I honestly, I could have done without the whole love interest and love triangle and all that. There was enough plot just with what Katniss was going through and everything that was happening, that I didn't need the love interest and thing. So I'm glad that in the movie it wasn't so pushed out there, because I could care less for it. So I chose violence because I also read my first ever historical fiction and also my first ever Kristen Hanna book, and that was A Nightingale. And if you follow me, I had a whole crash out over this book. I did discover that historical fiction is still not a thing for me. Don't get me wrong. If you are interested in reading historical fiction and books that just want to obliterate you. I think Kristen Hanna is a great introduction author to historical fiction, because even for me, never reading a historical fiction before, Kristen Hanna's writing is really easy to follow. I actually enjoyed it. It was, like I said, it was easy to get through. It wasn't overly complicated. We were in France, and it was during the beginnings of the Holocaust, before the concentration camp, when the concentration camps were just starting. So you already know what type of book this was. Midway through, I had a whole crash out, not even because of the main characters, to be honest. It was some just random side characters. One of them wasn't really random, but random side characters. I have a big thing when it comes to harm being done to children. It is just a thing that would make you crash out really easy. I tend to stay away from books like that just because for me, it's very triggering. So in this book, there was an instance where, spoilers, by the way. So if you want to read this book, just skip this part because I don't want to spoil it for you. There was one of the things that made me crash out. There was a scene where, again, like I said, the concentration camps weren't even started, and they were rounding up the Jewish people in France. And there was an instance where, this is about sisters. One of the sisters knew what was happening, knew that they were rounding up, not necessarily what they were going to do, but she knew that it wasn't going to be good. There was a lady where these police officers, or whatever you want to call them, soldiers came, and they came to take the lady. Her name was on a list, and they were going to come and take her. The lady had kids. The sister lived in the same apartment building as her, and the sister was telling the lady, give me your children. I will care for your children. They're going after you, because the soldier said that the children's names are not on the list. It's just the mother. And people are like, well, she didn't know what to expect. She didn't know what was going to happen. But if you don't feel comfortable, I crashed out because the lady told her, I can't leave my kids with you. What kind of mother would I be? And I crashed out a little bit because I was like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't feel comfortable. Something is setting you off. This girl who you know, she's not truly a stranger, is offering to take care of your children. Just give her your children. That made me crash out. Oh my gosh. The mother ended up taking her children. Again, now we go to the other sister, and her best friend is on the list. So they're being rounded up, but her children are not on the list. So instead of, again, this made me crash out, and I get it. It's like they didn't know what to expect. I understand. Instead of saying, leave the kids with me, or she did. She offered, leave the kids with me. I will look after them, and then you go. But instead of her doing that, they try to escape. And she goes and tries to assist them to escape. She has 2 children. She has a daughter and she has a toddler. And they try to escape. Instead of leaving the kids and her going on her own, they try to escape, and something happens to the daughter. I crashed out so bad. I was so angry. I was so frustrated because for me, in my perspective, it could have been avoided. If the best friend just would have left the kids with her, it would have been a different story. Nothing would have happened yet. I had to continue on. So I read through the crash out, and I even crashed out even more because they still came and they still took the best friend, which I was just like, so what was the point of whatever happened to the daughter? What was the point of that? For me, it was needless. It didn't need to happen. I'm saying I was just frustrated. So I did end up reading. I did continue to read it. I didn't DNF it. I continued. And I will say the last 60 or so pages of this book, I was bawling. It was a beautiful story. It was obviously a tragic story. Hello. And even more so because things like this truly did happen in our history. And that's devastating. It's sad. The last 60 pages of this book made the whole book worth it, in my opinion. Like I said, Kristen Hanna's writing is very beautiful. I almost want to say poetic in a sense, but it was a beautiful book. If this is your thing, if you love historical fiction and you haven't picked up The Nightingale, I do recommend it. I'm actually really excited because on here it says soon to be a major motion picture, and I found out that the Fanning sisters, so Dakota Fanning and Elle Fanning, are supposed to be casted to play the sisters. I'm really excited about that, and I'm just looking forward to the movie. I think it's coming out in 2027. I'm not sure. You guys comment down below if you know when it's coming out, but I'm really excited about it. So if you do like historical fiction, or you're looking to get into historical fiction, I do recommend Kristen Hanna, because regardless of my crash outs, great writing, beautiful story. The last 60 pages, I was bawling like a baby. So yes, I would recommend that. Moving on to some non-heavy books that I finished in January. I also went ahead and I finished The Dancing with My Demon series by Steph Maka. I had to read, I want to say it was, let's see. I read Echoes, which is book 2, Ravage book 3, and Exile book 4. I did all audios for those. Audios for those books are amazing. It is a full cast. Fantastic. So I will say, were they like, OMG, they're going to change your life? No. So if you're looking for a good, spicy time, very unhinged. I will say that. They are in an asylum. So just know it's like very like secret society, asylum, found family, like that type of touch her and die vibes. It is very much, that's what you're looking for. I do recommend that series. I want to say overall I gave it a 4 stars altogether. Do I feel like it needed to be 4 books? Not really. It honestly could have been 2 or 3 at max, honestly, with how the story went. But it did keep you captivated, especially, like I said, if you're doing the audio. Hello, it's audio. I did enjoy that. That was on the lighter side of my reading. I also went ahead and read Lady of Darkness, which is by Melissa K. Rowanrich. I hope I said that right. It happened to be a TBR redeem from my TikTok, which I do. Some of these books are TBR redeems. So I don't know how to explain this one too much. It was a dark fantasy, or maybe dark romantasy, I would say. I gave it, what did I give it? I gave it 3.5 stars. And the reason why I gave it 3.5 stars, because no lie, I was lost probably like 60% of that book. And all due to the fact that there is, in fantasy books, as we know as readers, in fantasy books, there is some sort of world building, right? Some authors are over the top with it. I'll tell you an author that's over the top with it, but that they want you to understand the intricacies of their world, the magic, if there's magic in it, the hierarchy. They want you to understand the ins and outs of the fantasy world that they have built, that they have constructed in their mind and written out for you. And there's other authors like this one, Melissa K. Rowanrich, where there really was no world building whatsoever. Not even a little sprinkle here and there. There was no world building whatsoever. Details were thrown in as you went on in the story, but I was really lost as to who I was, where I was, and what was happening for 60% of that book. I will say, when we did get the world building, when we did get what the plot was really going to be, it was really good. So it is a little bit like a thing, because if we had some world building sprinkled in as we went, more than what we had, I really do think that I would have enjoyed it a lot more. So that was Lady of Darkness. I don't feel the need to continue the series. However, some besties tell me that it gets better by book 3, and do I want to wait till book 3 to do it? I don't know. So I'm still on the fence of finishing that series, because book 3, I don't know. I also read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This was my first ever Christina Lauren book. This was a book that made me tab it up. And this one was a weird one for me as well. I forgot what I rated this 4 stars. And the only reason why I rated it, I didn't give it 5 stars, was because of the ending. It was because of how everything played out. Hello, when I tell you that I tabbed it up. The beginning, the middle, and what it took to get to the ending was beautiful. It was, when I tell you, the romance and the love that was written on page in this book, it was so beautiful. We started off with an example of our main FMC. And she's talking about her dad. She's talking about her mom and how her dad thoroughly loved her mother. Let me just show you. It was so beautiful. Literally, I had to tab it up. It was literally on page 2. You guys, it was his love that was booming. His love was a roaring, voracious bellow. And after he loved mom with the strength of the sun, after the cancer killed her with a gentle gasp, I figured he would be hoarse for the rest of his life and would never want another woman the way he wanted her. Hello, beautifully written, very poetic, and how love was just really transcripted in this book. So you have Macy and Elliot, and they were childhood sweethearts, if you will, and life situations happened and they went their own way. They meet back up again, and they're just trying to figure out who they are now and what went wrong. So it was a lot of present and then jumping to the past, present then jumping to the past. I preferred their past story, when they were kids growing up and teenagers, and the bond that they formed, the support that they gave each other, the care that they gave each other, the love and respect that they gave each other. It was so beautiful. It was great. I was like, this is such a beautiful love story, and it was awesome. And then we got to the point of why they split up. I was so disappointed that that's how the author decided to tell us why they separated. Elliot and Macy separated. Spoilers. Elliot and Macy separated because of a misunderstanding, but it was a misunderstanding that ended up being the whole miscommunication thing. I know it's a sore spot for a lot of us book people. Miscommunication can be so annoying at times. This was one of the times, because when I tell you that as kids and even teens that they loved each other, they were there when the other needed them, I'm telling you, it was so freaking beautiful. And it was so, like I said, it was so disappointing that the reason why they separated and the miscommunication thing, and it just threw off the rest of the book for me. But I still gave it 4 stars because, like I said, the beginning of the book, it was beautiful. I tabbed it up. I loved Elliot, like young Elliot. I loved young Elliot and young Macy. And that's truly why I stuck to giving it still a high-ish rating, because I loved them in the beginning. If you read this book, let me know your thoughts, because I just wish it would have stood in the past. If you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? I also did the audio for Ward D by Frida McFadden. That was also another TBR redeemed, this time for my Twitch channel. And it was good. It's a Frida McFadden. If you don't know, she writes thrillers. And the only other Frida McFadden book that I read previously was Never Lie. Loved it. I loved Ward D. It was she almost had you thinking that you were cuckoo for a little bit. We're following this med student, and she has to complete her rounds, if you will. And she had her fieldwork included her doing a round in the psychiatric ward, which was Ward D. That's what it's called in her hospital. It just, like I said, it had you thinking that you were crazy because she was crazy. And then it was this whole thing. I will say, though, I enjoyed it. I did the audio. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I will say probably around 40, maybe 50% of the book, I kind of knew what was happening. It could just be me, but anytime I read a thriller, my mind is like, I don't trust nobody. That dog looked at me the wrong way. There's something wrong with that dog. I suspect everybody of being the true villain in a thriller, because it's a thriller. That's what it's supposed to do, right? 40 to 50% of the book, I already knew what was going to go down. When we get to the end of the book, I was like, and I knew it. There were some details that I had off, but for the most part, I guessed what truly was going on. However, what I didn't guess was the ending, and the fact that she was still giving off cuckoo vibes threw me off a little bit, because I'm like, hold on now. Is she one of those books is like, well, is she crazy? Is she not crazy? Because if she crazy, then I'm going to be crazy too, because I didn't understand what the heck was going on. But overall, it was a good thriller. It was a nice, easy read compared to all the other books that I have mentioned so far. It was a nice, easy read. It was a good time, and I did enjoy it. I gave that one 4 stars as well, only because I guessed majority of it. Another book that I read was All That Falls by A.N. Horton. That also was a TBR redeem for my TikTok. And this book, I actually enjoyed it. It was a fun book. I want to say it was a fantasy adventure / almost sci-fi-y. This was only the first book, and I think in a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. But the beginning of the book, what made me interested, the beginning of the book was giving me very much Doctor Who vibes. There was a minotaur falling out of the sky, but it was like Doctor Who and Loki, like that. I will say, and this is me just being nitpicky, the names that they chose in the book, why those names? And I get why some people are a little bit more thing, and they'll DNF it if the names are weird. Some of these names are just random. There were points in this book, and everything's getting a little bit, there's almost too much happening, if that makes sense. The plot was almost everywhere, and then we randomly, like, there was Fae and the different levels of Fae and their land, but then all of a sudden in the hellscape, and we're dealing with Medusa and Greek goddesses or Greek myths. And so sometimes it felt like it was everywhere, but like I said, it was very Doctor Who-ish, and I feel like Doctor Who can sometimes be chaotic, if not all the time, be very chaotic in plotline and everything. So I did enjoy it. It was a good time. If you don't like Doctor Who, or you don't like those kind of chaotic storytelling, chaotic plot lines, this may not be for you. I'm saving my favorite one for the last. I also completed my first Brandon Sanderson book. You guys, when I tell you that this was a lot, first question, did I enjoy it? Yes, I enjoyed it. This book is broken up into parts, which I appreciated. I enjoyed it from the end of part 3, almost beginning of part 4 to the end. It took me a while to really get into it, because Brandon Sanderson loves his world building, which I can appreciate. but I was overwhelmed. Me being, I would like to say this is my, what would you call this? Epic fantasy, high fantasy? Let me know. This was a lot. The amount of detail and just information that he pumps into you in the beginning parts of this book was a lot. I did have to find the audio for it because I was getting lost in trying to read this, to be honest. So once I got the audio, it was so much better, in my opinion. I didn't feel as overwhelmed just trying to keep track of everything and underlining things and trying to understand the magic system and the metals that he puts in here and the characters, and it was a lot. But like I said, at the end of part 3, beginning of part 4, the story really picked up for me. I was able to pick up a lot more, understand a lot more. And I also figured out that Brandon Sanderson is diabolical in how he writes his stories, because no one is safe. And if you have read this, no one is safe, because the way that my jaw dropped in who he decided they're just not needed anymore was like, bruh. How do you literally, spoilers if you're watching this, kind of spoilers, how do you literally decide that a character that we literally been with since page 1 is no longer needed in the last 20 or 30 pages of this book? Mr. Sanderson, why'd you do that? So very diabolical in his writing. Like I said, very heavy with world building. If you love world building, if you love to know all the intricacies, information on every single piece of the world that you are a part of, try Mistborn, try Brandon Sanderson. Like I said, a lot of details. I am going to be reading the next 2. I'm going to be reading in February, The Well of Ascension, and then March, I'm going to be reading The Hero of Ages, because I was going to read these back to back. That's not for me. It's not for your girl. I wasn't going to be able to keep up, because I knew how he wrote. I am interested in continuing this series. Like I said, heavy on the world building, diabolical with his characters, and I'm really interested to see where the heck we're going to go from where he left off here. So that was fun. I also read The Game Changer. And if you are a Heated Rivalries fan, Game Changer is book 1 in the Heated Rivalry. I did the audio for that, and I feel like you guys are going to come for me for this. Your girl was not a fan. I am your typical smutty reader. I love me some smut. I love it. But I also love smut with plot. And there's a few things that threw me off with The Game Changer. I watched Heated Rivalry. I watched it not in its entirety. I skipped a few parts. I'm just being 1,000% transparent with you. I loved it, right? I love the story between Shane and Ilya. I love that it was over years, right? If I'm not mistaken, how I understood it, it was over years that they were together and hiding and just loving in secret. It took place over time. In The Game Changer, I was excited to read it because I was like, as in Heated Rivalry, we get to see Kip and Scott. Oh my gosh, they were also loving in secret as well, and just like how he came out. It's so beautiful. I read the book. Or I listened to the audio, and here are my things. 1, and this is me being picky, and tell me if it was just me. The audio for Kip was a little off-putting in the sense that Kip came across in the audio as very, how do I say this, very rugged sounding. And it was weird because in the audio for Kip, when he was inner monologuing, sounded fine. But then the Kip that was outward speaking to a different character, speaking to Scott, I don't know why they made him sound the way they did. They almost made him come across as very dunce-ish. I don't know what the proper word is, so don't come for me. But just very airhead-ish. He's your dude who doesn't really know a lot. That's how he came across in the audio. And I wasn't fond of him. I'm like, why is his inner monologue fine? And then when he's talking to others, he doesn't know what to do, who he is, and is just like a lost person. That threw me off. And 2, the Kip in the book was very, I said, burly, rugged. Kip was Kip. If you understand what I'm saying, right? Kip in Heated Rivalry he came across as this soft-spoken, shy type of character. And the Kip in the book was not. He was confident being out. He was confident in himself and who he was. He had some struggles with trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life, yes. But Kip was confident in his sexuality. Yeah, I'm out. This is me. It is what it is. Scott, on the other hand, and we've seen that in Heated Rivalry a little bit. Scott was the one that just wasn't sure what to do and gonna be able to come out to in his profession, which is understandable, right? I didn't rate it very well. I'm not gonna tell you what I rated. I didn't rate it very well because, one, they fell in love in a matter of months. In a matter of, I don't even think it was 3 months. They are all of a sudden, you are the love of my life. All of a sudden, all these things. And it just felt very fast paced, right? To where I thought it was going to be like heated rivalry. Oh my gosh, they were loving each other for so long, and here they are. And the book was not like that. The book was very like, they've seen each other at a smoothie shop, which it was smoothies. It wasn't a cafe. It was a smoothie shop and all of a sudden they like each other. And Kip is attracted to him because he's a hot guy. And then he's trying to figure out, oh, is he into me? Is he not into me? Like, what is it? It was so different than what we've seen in the show. That's all I will say. It was very different when we seen in the show. At chapter 4 or 5, whatever 20% of the book, they were already hunching. They were hunching. And they were hunching a lot in this book, which heated rivalry shows us that too. It was all hunching. But there was still the love aspect of it. There was some parts in Game Changers. Oh, that's so sweet. Or, oh my gosh, come on, let's get it together, guys. But they were hunching all the time. And it was just like, again, I do. Y'all know this. I like me some smut. But when we're just for smutting it out, I'm not a fan. If you want to read smut and the smut being the main part of the story and then the plot being sub part of the story, then it'll be perfectly fine for you. I just wanted more. I guess my mistake was watching the show first and expecting it to be that type of thing. That could have been just me. So there's that. Another book that I read and I did the audio for was Out on a Limb. It was a TBR redeem for my Twitch channel, and I loved it. If you're looking for a cute, cozy, beautiful love story, just listen or read Out on a Limb. It was such a cute story. I loved it. It did have one of my favorite tropes in it. Come for me if you want. But one of my favorite tropes is a pregnancy trope. I live for it. I like what I like. So it was a very sweet story. It was very cute, straight to the point type of love story. It was a very mature love story, I guess I would say. It was very mature in how they communicated. There was no miscommunication in this story whatsoever. She didn't hide that she was pregnant forever. They were both very mature in how they handled things. They were hilarious. The main FMC and the main MMC, they were hilarious together. There is disabled representation in this story, which was beautiful. The way that they handled themselves, and there was not really a lot of self-reflection on, oh, he lost his leg. One of her arms wasn't fully developed. And they just handled it like champs. I loved it. It was just very mature. It was refreshing, I guess I would say. It was a very refreshing love story. Super cute. It was funny. The banter between the both of them was hilarious. And it was just, like I said, a very mature love story. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. And that was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bowden Young. I know this is going to cause a lot of tension, or you're going to look at me like, damn. As you know, in January, I also started my Zodiac Academy journey. Yes, I went into Zodiac Academy pretty blind. I did not know what the premise of it was. I did not know any type of background information other than it was a long ass series. To be honest, that's literally all I knew. There may be some magic. That's all I knew. That's how I went into it. I listened to the graphic audio of book 1, which, by the way, I don't advise listening to the graphic audio of Zodiac Academy because I don't know who produced it, who edited the audio for it, but the fact that there was club house music playing in the background, especially when you're trying to hear who the heck did something or important details. I know that a lot of us have the ADHD, but that was excessive. It was overwhelming. And I was like, I need to rewind it because I just over here listening to the beat of the song that's playing in the background instead of who left this letter here. So that was a little bit distracting. Another thing, the main reason, it was a bully romance. This is a bully romance, you guys. And when I say bully romance, I mean a bully romance. I am following the Vega twins. They are tossed into the Zodiac Academy world because they apparently are lost heirs of Solaria, and they didn't know. Obviously, they didn't know that they were these lost heirs, but apparently everybody else knew. And they're tossed into this world, tossed into this academy, and they are hated by the heirs. These group of men, or boys, really, boys, because that's how they were acting. These group of boys who are set to inherit Solaria, or set to take over Solaria. But if the Vega twisters come in, they are the rightful heirs. I was not a fan. I'm being totally honest. I was not a fan. I was telling the besties. I'm sorry, but the only person that saved the only character that saved the first book was Geraldine. I loved me some Geraldine. Loved Geraldine and the Ass Club. That was it. At the end of book 1, I raged so hard because I felt like I wasted my time. And that's me being overly dramatic, but telling you the truth, 100% honest. Because the way it ended, I was angry. Totally, really angry. I still went and did book 2. I got the regular audio for book 2. And because, again, the graphic audio, no thanks. Again, Geraldine saved it. I would say Geraldine saved it. And I am a fan of Orion, Professor Orion. And those two people are probably the only reason why I will continue the series. I am glad I spaced it out the way that I did. I'm reading 2 Zodiac Academy books each month. And I'm reading, just so you guys are aware, I'm reading all the Zodiac Academy books. So all 9 books of the Zodiac Academy. And then I'm also going to be reading the Ruthless Boys. So in February, I'm due to read Zodiac Academy 3 and the first Ruthless Boys. I'm going to continue it because I am so intrigued as to why this series is loved by so many. And a lot of people tell me, oh, it gets better by book 3 or gets better by book 4. And I'm just like, with these series, why are we waiting until book 3 or 4 for it to get better? To complete a series that has, I think there's like 16 or even more than that books in that series. Book 4? Ma'am, sirs. No, thank you. Like I said, I'm continuing the series more out of curiosity than anything. I want to see what happens because in book 2 I was still not I was not impressed. I feel like the Vega sisters were too lenient on the boys that bullied them and really bullied them, nearly killed them at the end of the first book. Spoiler, I'm sorry. Nearly killed them at the end of the first book. And I feel like in book 2, they were putting up a fight, but it was more like, no, stop, don't do that type of thing, which irks the living lights out of me. Hello, they literally just try to get rid of you. And no matter how many times you say that you don't want the kingdom, you don't want the throne, no matter what, or even asking, which is frustrating to me. Vega sisters, they did not grow up in Solaria. They did not grow up into this world. They were struggling for their life in the real world. They did not grow up in a ritzy place and have everything they wanted. They were starving, running for money, stealing, do whatever they can to survive. Whatever they can to survive. They were not entitled to anything like these little kids in Zodiac Academy. And I get it. Their parents are making them. Whatever. These girls were struggling for their life. Instead of using your brain to ask them how their life was before Solaria, before Zodiac Academy, they decide to treat them like trash, which I guess that's my raging point. It's the miscommunication. Again, you guys see I have a problem. If you would just sit there and ask them and have a decent conversation with them instead of plotting behind their back and figuring out, hey, maybe our parents don't know everything. Maybe they are just trying to hold power. Maybe we should have a grown-up conversation and to figure out how the Vega sisters grew up so we could understand what's happening. And just maybe we could all be grown-ups about this. But no, are they doing that? No. They're assuming that the Vega sisters want the throne, that they want this and they want that. So of course the Vega sisters, you know what? No matter what we say, no matter what we do, how many times we say we don't want it, you know what? Let's take over. And I think that was the best part for me when you're like, you know what, we do want the throne. It's just making me rage. It's giving very much like Gossip Girl, like that type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like that very like high school gossip drama. And it's like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. So that's how I feel. That was a rant about Zodiac Academy. That's how I feel. Like I said, I'm going to continue the series because I'm curious. Why are people loving the series so much? There has to be a reason. So we're going to figure where we'll find it out. And hopefully I continue. Hopefully I finish it. That's what I'm saying. I do want to finish it. So we'll see. I go from that. And then finally, I will tell you the last 2 books that I finished. And speaking of waiting until book 4 in a series or book 3 or whatever, you know what series I didn't have to do that for? This one right here. The Bridge Kingdom series by Danielle L. Jensen. This right here is what I look for in a series. In a fantasy series, I should say. This book right here, I did the first book, which is The Bridge Kingdom, and I also listened to The Traitor Queen, which is book 2 of the same series. All this By the way, I did the audios. If you have Audible subscription, all the books are right now included in the Audible free catalog. So jump on that quickly. We don't know how long it's going to be there, so jump on it quickly. I didn't have to wait till book 3 or 4 for this. This started right on page 1. This was my favorite. These 2 books were probably my favorite 2 books of the month. I was so impressed with Danielle O. Jensen's writing, her characters, the banter between them, the plot line, the way that the plot keeps evolving and it's not boring, it's not predictable. It's glorious. The FMC in here, she's everything to me. Laura is everything to me. All right. There was a point where I was getting tired coming off of reading Throne of Glass, and you get the assassin in there. Lady of Darkness has an assassin. What else did I read? There was another book that I read that had an assassin. I'm like, ugh, I'm getting over like this right here. If you haven't picked this up, please, I implore you to pick up this series. This series, for me, in my opinion, is not talked about enough with how good it is. There's not enough words to describe how much I enjoyed Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen. I am nervous because I'm only going to be on book 3, and I want to say book 3 is from a different POV, which I'm fine with, but I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous for this. The way Traitor Queen ended, the last line that Laura said, I was like, yeah, I love me a strong, I don't give two about you, what you want, but if you come and threaten me and mine, just know you can get it. I love me an FMC like that. And that's my girl in here. She is willing to do whatever, kill whoever, whatever it takes to protect her and hers. You know what I'm saying? If she needs to be the villain, she'll become the villain. You're safe though. Her people are safe. I adore that. And the fact, I'm trying not to give you guys spoilers because I'm so excited. Bridge Kingdom I loved. The Traitor Queen, when she, a little bit of a spoiler. So pause, if you're going to read the series, just mute me or forward me a little bit because I need to say this because I'm going to tell you my favorite part of Traitor Queen. So give me a minute. When she reunited with her sisters, her badass sisters, you know what I'm like, badass sisters. It was giving very much, if you know Throne of Glass, it was giving much the 13, but badass assassins. They don't have magic. There's no magic in here that I'm aware of. There's no magic in this series, but they are bad. Like I was eating it up so much. So like I said, that those 2 books, Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen, were probably my top picks for January. I love them. I adore them. I am going to be continuing the series. I have to fit them in my February TBR somewhere, and I will. I just need to figure out where. Overall, we had a great month. Let me know, comment down below, what was your favorite read of your month. If you read any of the books that I mentioned, please comment down below. If you were like, girl, you crazy, like I love this, let me know. Let's talk about it in our comments. And as always, make sure that you're following me both on TikTok and Instagram, where I do more book reviews, bookish posts, and all that. And you're able to follow me on that way. Remember that I also stream on Twitch 7 days a week, almost all day. So make sure you're following on Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok. And also follow me here on YouTube. Love you guys. As always, happy reading. Bye.